Hi, everyone. It's Justin here with Voices for Voices. Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of our show. Whether you're watching, listening, you're here in the United States or across over 100 countries worldwide, over 1,000 cities worldwide, it's really humbling, but it is uh, work that we love to do, and I know our guest today is going to echo that with the work that he has done and continues to do. And we have big goals. He has big goals, and so I think it's going to be a lot of fun to have this conversation. So we're just going to hop right in and not waste any more time on intros because I can go for a minute or two. So let's hop in. So our guest today is Luke Mickelson from Sleep in Heavenly Peace. This organization is nothing short of just fantastic. When we talk about and think about service to others, helping the human, not helping the Republican, helping the Democrat, just helping the human being. It's just incredible, and we're gonna just say thank you to Luke for joining us on the show today.
Oh, Justin, thanks for having me on. This is great.
Absolutely. So let's get it started. So what got you uh, thinking about service to others, and it maybe
Mhm.
before have the work that you're doing now, or
Mhm.
maybe it sparked the work that you're doing now.
No, it's a great question. I think it's easy to answer for me. I grew up in a small town, and the benefits of growing up in a small town is you know everybody and they know you, and that maybe is also not the benefits, but getting to know everybody and being so close connected, you feel responsible for each other. You feel like you need to support them, mostly because you know exactly who they are, they know who you are, and so when someone's pulled off on the side of the road, you got to stop and help. So
Mhm.
and I was also a farm kid from Idaho, right? Pretty humble means. My mom raised us, so I was raised in a single parent home with, there's five of us, and so we learned how to live with that. We learned how to do with what we had, but we also had a great community that helped and jumped in. And for example, when my parents split up, that next Christmas and pretty much every Christmas after that, we knew we weren't going to get much because it was my mom and single income, but I remember walking out that first Christmas season to and opened up the mailbox to grab the mail, and there was $1,500 cash in an envelope. And we knew that came from the community, and that's just what you did, right? And
Yeah.
and I always remember thinking, I was really grateful for that, but I wanted to be that guy too. Someone could, so they did. I want to be when I can, I will type guy. And so, I think service just was something that was always in the back of my mind because I appreciated what was given to me and the lessons I learned back then. And I've always felt that true service and I should say true joy comes from serving other people. You when you have a chance to stop thinking about yourself and thinking about your own problems and maybe focus some of your effort on someone else and helping them through some of their challenges, your problems don't go away, Justin. They just don't feel as heavy, and when they get shrunk down like that, I think they're easier to deal with, and sometimes you just find different ways around it that you might not otherwise have seen because your problems just seem so huge. It's like a monster in the closet that you've never seen. It's just as big and bad and as ugly as you want it to make it. And until you actually see it, you might realize there is no monster. It's a very small one, right? So I think service did that for me, and I've just carried that through my life. When I served a mission for my church, I looked at it as a way to serve, not to convert, right? Just to serve people. And my mission president actually taught me that. And then he taught me later on, he says, whatever profession you go into in your life, always look at it as a way to serve others, no matter what you do. And I love that. And it's really helped me, especially during those hard times, when work is a little rough. And I was an outside salesman, if that doesn't shock everybody. So when there's problems with a client or a customer, I didn't get down about it. I actually looked at it as a great opportunity to build relationships with them, because I wanted to be that Superman for him. I wanted to solve it for him. I wanted to serve him. And so I think it just inherently came a part of my upbringing and has stuck with me for, my whole life.
Yeah, and that's awesome, and that's kind of how I feel. You get asked questions all the time. How do you get started? What made you stop and do something,
Yeah.
or incorporate a trip? And it's like, well, if I already had a trip in mind, and I have a couple days, and there's an opportunity to help others. Then I was lucky to go to Ukraine and help some people just a couple of years ago. And people asked me, like, why would you go in like a war zone with missiles flying? And it was just one of those things where obviously I wanted to do something different that not everybody had done. But then I
Mhm.
also just wanted to be with people who, on a minute by minute basis, don't know if they're going to be in a bomb shelter. They're
Right.
they're doing their classes in bomb shelters. And uh, anyway, so I was asked after that, like, why would you even think about doing that? I even hesitated to tell family because of how risky it was to do that, just as an example.
Yeah.
And so I think you and I share that trait, that when something comes up, like you mentioned, you just step in, and when you're
Yeah.
able to do it, you just do it. And I think sometimes it's easy for people to understand, and sometimes it's
Right.
like, but why would you do what you're doing?
Right.
And so with sleep in heavenly peace, how did that came about? Was that uh did that come from your outside sales experience, like a vendor that you worked with, or
Oh.
was that just kind of from the ground up?
Well, it's a story that gets created, like I think a lot of movements in our country, in our world. It started in a garage. You know, um, I didn't know child bedlessness was even a real thing. It's not even a real word, Justin. You believe that? I type it all the time and I get that red line underneath it. Just bugs me, but I like using it because it's the irony that even bedlessness doesn't know it's real, but it is real and it's real all over. Well, in 2012, when all this started, I didn't know anything about it. No one did, right? I was just serving in my church position, which was what was called a young men's president, which is basically over the young men's program. I was responsible for the religious teaching, but also the weekly activities, which was basically Boy Scouts. So we did a lot of scouting stuff, and which involves service all the time. We were doing service all over the place. Well, in these meetings, as a part of the young men's president responsibilities go, I'd sit in these meetings with other leaders and we talk about activities that we're doing, things that were going on in the community, and of course, the people that we were helping. Well, there was one family that a leader brought up and talked about the things that the family needed. First of all, they lived in a part of my small town, really small town, that I didn't even know existed. And I've been riding my bike around this town since I was 5. So, I mean, I was pretty shocked that I didn't know where this place was at. But then she started naming off the things that the family needed, right? They needed rides to school and to work, and the kids didn't have any beds, and they were low on food, and they needed help with rent. And I remember, whoa, 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 wait a minute. Did you just say the kids didn't have any beds?
Right.
Like, what do you mean? They got mattresses, right? She says, no, they're just sleeping on the hardwood floor. And that just hit me so hard, so wrong. Like, I thought about my own kids and what would it be like for them to sleep on the floor. I'd slept on the floor one night, not intentionally. I should say intentionally, not because I wanted to. And it was not a fun night, you know. And then I thought about my Boy Scouts and all those leaders out there listening right now that lead teenage kids. You know, for the past decade, it's been kind of hard to find an activity that's fun and something they want to do that doesn't involve a screen or a phone or a video game. And I thought, oh, here's a great opportunity that I could get an Xbox controller out of these boys' hands. I'll put a drill in it and we'll teach them how to build a bed. I've never done one, but we'll figure it out. I'm a farm kid. I can learn how to do this. And so that's what we did. You know, I went home that night and measured my daughter's bunk bed and came up with a plan on how to build this bed with these teenage kids. And so the next couple of nights they came over and we built this bunk bed for this family. And it was great. It was a great experience. Um, but the word kind of got out in the community and certainly within the boys' families what we were doing. And all of a sudden, when it came time to deliver the bed, everybody wanted to be involved. I mean, we had like 30 people show up at my house. And I remember thinking, hey, we can't take y'all over to this
Right.
to this two-bedroom apartment, you know. So me and a bunch of people stayed back. Well, I wanted the boys to go and experience that. And so they did. Well, the next day at church, they told me how amazing it was, right? All the
Mm,
the joy that they saw in the kids' face, of course, in the family. And I was excited that the boys got to experience that. I was a little, you know, uh, jealous, to be honest with you, that I missed out on that. But I was excited for them. Well, you know, the next week comes around, and this was just after Thanksgiving. You know, my kids and I are watching a program, and I'm going through a little something in my own eternal life, internal life of a faith crisis, of an identity crisis. You know, I was 35. It's kind of about that age where everybody's just really starts questioning what they believe and questioning what's important to them. You know, I've been in my career, a successful career for many, many years, and you know, was coaching, had a great family, had my church service. I was, you know, on paper it was great, but I was just struggling internally of what matters most. You know, where do I matter? Well, I just did this one awesome, amazing experience. It filled my bucket, and then the next week it was done. Right, back to the norm. It's funny how life just creeps itself back in, right? And well, I'm sitting on the couch with my kids, and we're watching Big Bang Theory back in the day, and all of a sudden a commercial comes on and it's, I don't know, some Xbox game or I don't remember what it was, but I remember my kids wanting to have this toy. And they knew I wasn't going to buy it for them. We already had an Xbox.
mhm,
So I remember thinking, you know, here I'm going through this big eternal struggle, right? And trying to pep talk myself out of this hole I was falling into, and no one knew about it. And then now my kids wanted this Xbox game or whatever that they knew I wasn't going to buy them, and they got a bed, and I just delivered a bed to a child that didn't have one. Why didn't they? I mean, all these dad moment things come popping in my head. Well, the next thing I knew, I stood up and walked out to the garage door, and my kids are like, Dad, where are you going? You know, we're watching our program. I said, you know, I got a leftover wood. I'm going to build another bunk bed and you're going to come and help me. Right? I wanted them to feel the joy of service. I wanted them to know what it felt like to stop thinking about themselves, as well as appreciate the things they had. You know, they're kids. Of course, they're going to ask for presents and all that. But I didn't want to miss out on a dad moment. You know, I didn't want to miss out on an opportunity to teach them something, just like the Boy Scouts. And so we built another bed. And it was awesome. But the trouble is, I didn't know what to do with it. You know, I didn't
right,
know child bedlessness was a real thing. And so I put it on Facebook. Someone recommended I do that on one of those buy sell trade groups. Said, you know, hey,
mm,
me and my family for a Christmas project have built this bed. And we want to give it to a family that's got kids sleeping on the floor. We don't. I just couldn't. I couldn't handle thinking about a child, you know, during Christmas time in Idaho, which is not a warm place, by the way.
mhm,
You know, to sleep on the floor. And so I did that. And a couple of things happened that was really shocking to me. The first thing was how many people commented on that post. People I never knew, I had no idea who they were, and people that, you know, friends I hadn't talked to for 20 years. And the
yeah,
second shocking thing was is they all knew about kids. They all knew someone that had kids sleeping on the floor, families that they knew, and the conditions that they were sleeping in. You know, hardwood floors, concrete floors, pallets, you know, kids, three or four kids to single bed. I mean, it was just really shocking to me that this was going on in my own small community in Idaho. So I was pretty excited, and I wanted this bed I built with my kids, to go to a special child, a special situation, one that really needed it. Well, I found one, and it was a friend of mine that called me up and said, "Hey, Luke, have you delivered that bed yet?" I said, "No, no, I haven't. Why? What's up?" She says, "Well, let me tell you about Haley." So Haley was a 6-year-old girl that had never slept on a bed before. She'd only slept in the backseat of her mom's car. They were homeless, right? And sure enough, my friend was helping them get a house and get out of homelessness, and so they finally had a house. And I thought this is perfect. So I loaded up the bed, and me and my buddy went out to deliver this bed to this family. Well, we walked into the house, and I don't know, I've been a part of, this kind of situation before, where it's, there's some poverty here, there's some transitioning homelessness, but I'd never walked into a situation like this through looking at through the eyes of a 6-year-old. What was it like? There's no couch or TV to watch cartoons. There's no table to eat cereal at in the morning. There was nothing in the house. There was a hot plate sitting on a milk crate that had a can of soup on it, and that was it. And I remember thinking, man, this is hard to see, knowing that this is what a 6-year-old girl goes through every day. But Haley, you couldn't tell. She was so happy she had a house. She was happy to show these two strangers, her whole house. She didn't know why we were there. But I remember leaning down and said, "Hey, why don't you show me your bedroom, Haley?" So she walked us back to her bedroom. And, Justin, you can imagine what this looked like. There's holes in the carpet and tears in the wallpaper and no closet door. There's used Barbie dolls and toys that in there. You could just kind of get a sense this wasn't the nicest place in the world. But of all those things that were hard to look at, the hardest thing and the one that got me the most is when I looked in the corner of the room and there was a pile of clothes sitting there. And that's where Haley slept. She'd come home from school, she'd put on her PJs, sleep on her school clothes, a shirt for a pillow and pants for a blanket, and then put those same shirt and pants on the next morning and go to school. That was so shocking to me. I'd never seen that before. I wasn't prepared for it. And almost got upset about it. Like I was mad. This is going on in my own hometown. Heck no. But then I got pretty excited because we had brought a bed for little Haley, and we started bringing in these pieces of the bed, and putting it together. And I remember watching Haley, and when she realized what it was that we were bringing in, she just erupted like 10 Christmases. You know, she came up and hugged these two strange dudes, that she had no idea who we were, and making all this racket. And then she did something I'd never seen before. She went and hugged and kissed the bed. To see a child kiss a bed, to love something like that so much, of something that you and I just take for granted every day. It just was so overwhelming to me. And if that wasn't enough to melt your heart, I look up and here's mom, 6 years of tears streaming down this single parent's face. And I was raised by a single mom too. So I know what those tears meant. I knew the guilt and the frustration and the struggle, and the worry that this mom has felt for 6 years now, trying to provide for kids, all coming out of her at once. The weight in that room was so heavy. I was speechless. I didn't know what to say. But one thing came to my mind that I didn't realize or plan for, and I don't know how you could. I just remember thinking, this is way more than just a bed. This is more than just a good night's sleep. And I tell everybody I tell this story to, listen, if you would just pause your life for just a moment, give me 60 seconds right now to help you realize and think about what would it be like to be 6 years old and not have a bed. If you think about it just physically, right? You're waking up, you're not feeling good, you're sore probably, you're not in a good mood. There's a reason why they call it waking up on the wrong side of bed. These kids are waking up on who knows what side of what. So they get up and they go to school. They're not ready to learn, not like the other kids. They're in a bad mood. They probably don't make very good friends because they're struggling, they're tired. And that's the physical side of things. Then you think about the emotional and the mental side of things. These kids can't have sleepovers, right? There's they don't want kids and their friends to come in and see the conditions they're sleeping in, and then they go to their friend's house. little Johnny's not only has a bed, but he's got throw pillows, right? And you got to wonder what kind of mental thought process that these kids have seeing that, and worse yet, Justin, when you and I have a bad day, maybe a bad day at work or getting in a fight with someone, or worse yet, we're sick, we got the flu. I mean, tell me, what one place do we all wish and can't wait to crawl into? It's our
I
bed.
bet.
These kids don't have that. And this is all running through my head in just seconds, right? As I'm witnessing this, sitting in this room with Haley and her mom. And I remember I couldn't say anything. I didn't know what to say. In fact, me and my buddy on the way home, we had about a 30-minute drive home, really didn't say much to each other, right? But I do remember thinking, look, I'm a farm kid from Idaho, Justin. I love hunting and fishing and outdoors and college football on Saturdays and all this stuff. I've loved it my whole life. And in a split second, none of it mattered anymore. It just was like I spent a couple of hours for the last couple nights with my kids building a bed to solve that problem. Oh, that was well worth my time. And by the time we got home, I remember I looked over to my buddy and I said, Jordan, no kid's going to sleep on the floor in my town if I have anything to do with that. I mean, I was like that upset about it.
Mhm.
Now, I didn't know how bad child bedlessness really was. I had this post that had a link or had rather comments about all these kids that people had mentioned that they knew of, and that was my goal. I just wanted to clean that list out. So we started building beds. We built 21 beds before Santa showed up and delivered them all, and it was such a great experience. But one thing that happened was the more we built and the more we shared, the more kids got presented to us. The more people came out and told us, well, I know a child. And another cool thing that I didn't plan on, there was more people that wanted to help. All of a
Oh,
sudden, my garage would fill that night with strangers, people I had no idea who they were. They just wanted to help kids in their own community. And I learned that there are millions of people out there that want to give back. They want to help. They want to make a difference in not just their life, but in other people's lives. They just don't know how. And so I knew right then and there, especially when I realized how bad and ugly child bedlessness was becoming, or rather that was, I knew that I wasn't going to solve child bedlessness in my community or even other people's communities. It wasn't going to be solved by some farm kid from Idaho, right? It was going to be solved by people in their local community stepping up and deciding, you know what, I'm going to make a change. I'm going to do something about this thing called child bedlessness in my own town. And so we built a platform. That's what we wanted to do. I built a platform so people could follow what we were doing and be successful at it. And because of that, now we've trained over 440 chapters in almost every state. We're in 4 countries, and here this summer we're going to be celebrating our 400,000th bed built.
oh,
How fun is that?
gosh. Oh my gosh. It's so incredible. And we take for granted, and I know I have, uh, things like like the bed, like as we're speaking about, when we're not feeling well, and we just want to go lay down in our bed, and to think that there's this many
Yeah,
people in more that don't even have that as an opportunity. And you talk about a Christmas gift, and games and screens, and a bed is something so much bigger than
yeah.
that, because it lasts for years and
Right.
years and years.
Well,
And
it's more than just a bed, right? These kids, when we deliver a bed to a child, right? There's two things I walk away wanting these kids to know. Number one, I say, hey, little Johnny. First of all, Johnny's hiding behind mom, right? We show
Mhm.
up and we're starting to put this bed together, these strangers, and it's fun to watch these kids, their apprehension, right? They're hiding behind mom. They don't know these people. They're making all sorts of racket in their room. And just like Haley, once they see that it's a bed, these kids crawl out from behind their parents and they're so excited. They start helping you build it. They start
mm,
bringing in slats and grabbing drills. And then when it's finished, they're crawling in bed at 3 o'clock in the afternoon to go to sleep because they've never had one, you know. And so I lean down to tell these kids before we leave, listen, this is your bed. This is
mm,
nobody else's bed. It's not your parents. It's not your brothers or sisters. This is your bed, right? And these kids, or rather, these people that are in your room that brought this bed to you, guess what? They built it for you because they love you and they want you to have and feel the joys of having a good night's sleep. And I think that really means something to these kids. You know, they don't have a lot of things, they don't have a lot of possessions, right? And this is something very valuable to them, as well as I want them to know that there's people in their community that love them, right? And I want that to resonate with them. And so later on in life, when they can, I hope they will. And that's the value of what it means to be a human helping another human. There's no agenda behind it. There's no cause other than we're here to help a child. And let's be real, Justin, these kids, they're in these situations not because of their choices,
mm,
right? These are the choices of someone else, and sometimes it's nobody's fault. It's a house fire, it's a lost
mm,
job, oftentimes we meet up with and have situations of single moms that had 5 minutes to grab as much crap as they can, throw it in a garbage bag, grab their kids, jump in the car, and take off. That's a real situation, and these kids suffer from it. And so the least we can do as fellow humans, fellow community members, is to provide that for them. Because uh, food, clothing, shelter. These are the three the big three I call, right? But beds, unfortunately, are a luxury for these families, and they
mm,
shouldn't be. It shouldn't be a luxury for a kid to have a bed. And the funny thing is, I guess not a funny thing, the sad reality is, I didn't know how bad child bedlessness was, right? There was two things that happened that kind of woke me up. The first thing was when I said, okay, this family Christmas project that we've been running a couple of years, I can't finance this myself, and other people wanted to donate money. I better become a charity. So,
mm,
like anybody, I went to the internet to try to find a charity that was providing beds for kids, so I can kind of see how they did it and what they did. And I mean, I had no business starting a charity,
mm,
but I was going to figure it out. Well, come to find out, there was one charity in the entire country that I found that were providing beds for kids, just one, and it was in North Carolina, clear on the other side of the country. That was shocker number one. And then shocker number two was, as we, of course, delivered beds and shared what we're doing, I started getting calls from social workers from CASA, Child Protective Services, all these agencies, foster care situations. And I was like their favorite guy. And I
uh,
found out, they told me, they said, Luke, you don't realize, you know, transitioning homelessness, these kids and these families trying to get back on their feet. Finding a bed for a child is most of the time, or oftentimes, the single hardest thing for these agencies to provide.
wow.
And when you realize it's because there's no other organization or no other agency that's providing it, those two things really shocked me. We started looking into it more and more. Now we know, and the only statistic that we have is something that we, Sleep and Emily Peace, has come up with just over the last 14 years, we know it's greater than 3% of the total population. There's over 12 million kids that are affected by child bedlessness in our country. And the
Wow.
sad reality is we only cover about 3.5 million of those. We only cover about 28% of the geographical area of the United States. And think about this right now, as you and I talk, Justin, there's 150,000 kids in the country that don't have beds right now. And
Mm,
that's only 28% that we know of. Can you imagine if that number was 100%? There's 70% of the population that don't even know we exist, and
right.
we're at 150,000 kids. We're going to build 400,000 beds this year, but we know when you're looking at 12 million plus, that's a long way to go, right? So we know that raising awareness about child bedlessness, bringing this to people's attention,
Mm,
that like me, like most people, had no idea that this was that big of a deal, but it really is. And there's a solution for it. We're the largest bed building charity in the world. It's not a bragging thing. It's actually a
Mm-mm.
sad reality. That's because there's not very many, right? And we want people to know that you can be a part of this, right? We built almost 90,000 beds last year. We're growing super fast because we put on chapters every year. We put about 50, 60 chapters every year. People that go to our website, shpbeds.org, they realize there's not a chapter close to them, so they want to start one. This is something they're really passionate about. So we provide that mechanism for them, right? Or people go to our website, like I said, shpbeds.org, and you're going to see what's going to come up is your local chapter. You're going to see what's going on locally. You're going to see that how many kids are needed or how many kids are on the waiting list. You're going to see how many kids they've helped. You're going to see events that you can be a part of. You can donate. 90+% of your donation stays in the chapter that you select. 90%, right?
Yeah.
I got to pull 10% because I got to pay for bills and stuff,
Yeah. Yeah.
like any organization. But we scrape together as much as we can and make sure it stays in the community, that you specifically want it to know. When I started Sleeping on the Peace, it wasn't going to be a charity, but when it did, I remember thinking, listen, I don't want to be one of these big charities where you donate money and it goes to a big pot. You have no idea where it ends up, right?
Right.
With Sleeping on the Peace, when you donate money to a specific chapter, you know it 90% stays in there. We're very transparent about that because we want people to know that the sacred dollar, little granny's $100 that got donated, we want that to go to the best use possible. And I'm really actually happy to say, because of our buying power, because of how frugal and how amazing our vendors are, and sponsors, partners, we actually take $1 and turn it into at least $1.30. That's how far we can stretch that dollar out, right? So it's really important for us to raise awareness and let people know, listen, this, yes, is going on in your own community right next door. Child bedlessness doesn't know economics. It doesn't know geography or culture or political or even religious environments. It doesn't care. It
Mm-mm.
only knows hardship. It only knows, trouble and sacrifice and pain. It's a terrible thing. And now that we know about it, we as human beings can help these little humans by being involved, by doing something. And if all you can do, my ask to you today, if all you can do is just open your mouth and share
Mhm.
this podcast, share what you heard today, let people know in the grocery store, hey, did you hear about child bedlessness? You never know who's listening. You could
That's
have a
good.
mom sitting behind you that doesn't have beds for their kids, and she has no idea what to do about it. You might have a social worker that doesn't know about it. You might have a school teacher or a school counselor that has witnessed these things and yet suffer in silence because they don't know that there's a purpose, or not a purpose, a solution to this problem, right? And that's going to happen if we just open our mouths.
Yeah, and to hear you say that there's only one other organization in the United States, other than yours, that that word of mouth, that
Yeah.
person that watches our show, other shows, listens to our show, other shows, just hearing that, hopefully, and it's sad to say, it should shock people that this is happening, and that
Yeah.
in our own communities, in our own country, that this is really like a little bit of an epidemic of sorts.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And yeah, since we've started, I'm happy to say that we have more nonprofits have come up. Even there's been two or three that have started as chapters with Sleeping on the Peace and now have their own bed building charity, which is great.
Oh,
We want trust me, there's more kids out there than one charity can handle, and that's great, right? But we do know we have a process that works very well, right? And this is only going to be solved by the local community, right?
yeah.
Yeah, we're a big national organization, but we don't look at ourselves that way, right? We're
Mhm.
just a group of a bunch of individuals, human beings helping other human beings across the country. And and here's the best part about about service, right? And I do a lot of keynote speaking about tiny moments, right? We all
Mm,
have them. We all get that itch or that thought or that inspiration of trying to do something, or maybe we should step in. And the sad reality is we dismiss those tiny moments far too easily. We're too busy, or that doesn't really affect me, or I can't make that big of a difference, or someone else
mm,
is doing it. All these excuses that we tell ourselves, right? The fact of the matter is, you if you would just act on one of those tiny moments, as small as it may be. Maybe I'll give you a great example. I didn't build that second bed with my kids because I knew child bedlessness was a problem. I had no
mhm,
idea. I had solved the one child sleeping on the floor that I knew, right? It was about providing a service for my kids. I wanted them to feel the joy of giving back, to appreciate the things I had. That was the first purpose. But because I acted on that, that's what uncovered so many other amazing opportunities and possibilities that once you make that first yes, once you act on that first desire to act, then it becomes easier and easier. And that's when worlds change. And I tell people, listen, you act on a tiny moment, you might not change the world,
mhm,
but you're going to change someone's world. And you know what? That someone might just be you. And that's
mhm,
great. Get yourself right. Once we are feeling happy and content with ourselves and feel confident that we can make a difference, then you're going to make a difference, right? And it's okay if you have to work on yourself first. But I'm telling you right now, like there are opportunities to serve, not just with Sleep and Emily Peace, but opportunities to change not just people's lives near you, but your own life, because it's changed mine, and nothing but for the good. There are challenges down the road, and building an organization and taking time and sacrifice. These are all important parts of your tiny moment and important parts of making life fulfilling for yourself and for others around. I just hope I'm encouraging and inspire others to follow that, because that's where real magic happens. That's where the real miracles in life happen, is through following tiny moments, um, working on, and this is critical. I share in my keynotes this.
mhm,
You have to have a desire to change, and I think we all do, right? But the second step is the most critical of that, right? And that's the desire to act. And that desire to act needs to be stronger than your desire to change. We all want to change. And how many times do we talk about it? Right.
right.
But if you don't work on your desire to act, right? I mean, you got to work on it more than your desire to change, then it'll just stay a dream.
Mhm,
Right. So and the desire to act, right, to work on that means to have to say yes once in a while. You have to get off the couch, even as small as it is, even as small as just to get out in the garage and build a bed with your kids, right? You never know. You might be building the largest bed building charity in the world and you don't even know it.
That's so true, and I love when you say the tiny moments because I feel the same way with our organization and with mental health and trauma and all those things. That a lot of times I'm one of the biggest beneficiaries
Yeah.
of what we do, and it's because, like you said, you have to act, and you got to have to work on yourself and get to that point to say, okay, like this feels good. It feels good because I'm helping myself, no
Mhm.
matter how small the win might be. That small win for us could be exponential
Yeah.
for another person, and
Yeah.
that is. I love how you piece that together because it's so true, and uh, it, it's like anything. You have to be passionate about what you're doing for others to kind of
Yeah.
feed off of that, and you can't. It's hard to sell something if you're just kind of just like, hey, come buy this thing, or hey, come donate to this organization, and you're not really bought in yourself.
Well, I learned, especially when I was going through that time when Sleeping on the Peace started, we all want a purpose of life, right? And it doesn't have to be so dramatic and heavy as like your sole purpose, right? But
Mhm.
when you have purpose, and I train on business leaders this, when you provide purpose for your employees, even for yourself, right? They become far better employees. They
Mhm.
become vested into your organization. And personally, right? When you find your purpose in life, right? That's what it's about. Well, I talk about making passion, how passion is made purpose or passion makes purpose, right? When you find that passion about something, um, then that becomes a purpose in your life. And when you find that, your mind, the possibilities, your talents just get increased tenfold. I mean, I have no business being a marketer. I don't know. I'm a salesman. I'm not a marketer, right? But for some reason, when it comes to sleep and heavenly peace, I had so many amazing ideas and thoughts and things that have been successful, things that not so great success, but so many great ideas and thoughts that I would not have otherwise thought about because the passion now turned into purpose, and that purpose is what drives us, and we all want it. When people are down and depressed, a lot of times it's because they don't feel like they mean anything. They don't have any purpose to their existence, right?
Mhm.
Um, Passion brings that. Passion makes purpose, and that all starts with working on that desire to act, and then executing, and um, starting on the smallest, tiniest moments is how we build that.
Excellent. We're getting close to the end of our time, and I know you've mentioned it throughout, but can you just go through the full pitch, how people can find
You
out more
bet.
about how they
You
can
bet.
may start a chapter, donate, all the
Yeah.
things.
So yes, please visit shpbeds.org. Sleep in heavenly peace, beds.org. Um, that like I said, it'll bring up the local website, the
Mhm.
local chapter to you. There'll be ways to donate, in-kind donations. They're all twin size, the same beds built in Alaska as it is in Hawaii.
Okay.
Um, so you can donate brand new sheets and mattresses if you want. You can donate dollars. You can get involved. Every
Mhm.
chapter needs help. Every chapter needs what we call a core team member, someone that can be there on a fairly regular basis, help teach people how to build beds, deliver beds. It's the most amazing experience, right? If you know of a child, please fill out an application for them. Let your
Yeah.
social workers know that this is a an opportunity. This is a solution to these problems. And then, like you said, if there's no chapter near you, and this is something that really pulls at your heartstrings, and you want to get involved in your own community and start something and help, you can start a chapter for Sleep and Heavenly Peace. And we train you uh, very successfully. We only lose one or two chapters a year, and that's usually because someone moves.
Yeah.
So our process is pretty rock solid because we want you to be successful. We make it as easy as possible for you. We just tell chapters, look, just focus in on raising money, building, and delivering beds. That's all. We take care of all the other administration mumbo jumbo that comes with running an organization. You don't have to worry about that, right? We just want you to worry about your own community, getting other people involved in the community. You'll be known as the bed building guy or gal, which is a great honor, and anybody can do it. Listen, I'm a farm kid from Idaho. I don't portray anything other than that because I want people to realize, hey, if a farm kid from Idaho can do it, anybody, anybody can do it.
Excellent. And it just went through their website, and then as far as social media, is it very similar to
Oh
that?
yeah,
Like,
sleep in heavenly peace. If you want to, every chapter has its own Facebook page, which you'll find on the website.
okay,
You're looking for me personally, just type in Luke Mickelson,
okay,
or SHP Luke. You'll find me. Love to hear from you. If you have any questions, love to answer those, give you some more information.
yeah.
Again, we're just a group of humans trying to help other humans, and you're a human being, right? No matter what you are, whether what religion or political stance or culture, it doesn't matter. We're all human beings. Let's help each other out through this time of life. We only have one trip around this blue dot, right? We can help each other out, enjoy it while we can.
Great. Anything that we didn't touch on, Luke, that
I
you
think
wanted
we
to?
got it. I hope
Okay.
so. Thanks for having
Yeah.
me on. And you know what, Justin, thanks for having a podcast because we wouldn't be able to, us guests, we wouldn't be able to voice our messages out unless we had someone like yourself that takes time
Uh,
and effort and sometimes a lot of money, personal money to get something produced. And so thank you on behalf of all your listeners
mhm.
for taking the time to do so.
Yeah, you're welcome, and that's our goal is help one person at a time, and we can't help like as you mentioned, can't help everybody in the world, but we can change the world for one person, and then that one person could that maybe down the road help another person,
That's right.
and that's really just being a human and being a part of humanity and.
Right.
Uh, so thank you so much for reaching
No,
out.
thank you.
Because if it wasn't for you reaching out, we wouldn't have this awesome opportunity to share and learn so much. And our listeners, all our viewers, please reach out. Please see what you can do personally. And if you're not able to reach out in your community, if you're a community leader, just like Luke mentioned, word of mouth, let people know that this is it's a crisis that's happening, and we can do as much as we can do. And like you said, it could be the bed building and guy or gal in the community. If donating is your thing, you have that opportunity to do that. And if you want to start a chapter, that would be fantastic too. So we are grateful to Luke to have reached out to us to be able to have this opportunity to share because uh, we're I never thought we'd get to the point that we would reach so many different countries and cities. Uh, it's mind blowing, and so we
Well,
want no matter where you're at in the world, start a chapter. If you don't have one there, or see what you can do and help others in
well,
your community, or you may know somebody in another country that you might be able to help.
right.
And we're just grateful to have so many awesome people that are doing such great work. Yeah, I get kind of like shivers, talking about what you do, Luke, and
Well,
and with sleep in heavenly peace, because it's something just I mean I kind of just I don't know kind of the fact that I overlook some things and
well,
it's like man like but we can't do anything, we just have to kind of move on from where we're at and see what we can do to help
right.
and I know from the server's point of view once it gets started it's one of the happiest most less, while there is a little bit of stress, it feels so much better than sometimes other things do, and that's the big thing. It's like, hey, you can help make a difference not only for a person, but that person may also be yourself. So,
Right.
thanks to
Well,
Luke.
thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. And yeah, and look forward to maybe the next time we get to talk.
Absolutely, yeah, reach out definitely. We'd love to have you on as time goes on. Just
Awesome.
reach out. We'll get you a slot. No doubt.
Thank you, sir.
And thanks to our viewers and listeners. Please reach out, learn more about Sleep in Heavenly Peace and Luke Mickelson. It's been a pleasure and a blessing. Grateful to have the opportunity to have a gentleman like this who is making such a big difference in the world. And we're sending our love and support to Luke and his team everywhere they may be, and the human beings that don't know yet that will be joining his team. So thank you, and we will see you on our next episode of the Voices for Voices TV show and podcast. And I've been your host, Justin Allen Hayes, founder of Voices for Voices. And our guest today has been Luke Mickelson, Asleep in Heavenly Peace. Have a great day, everyone. Bye bye for now.